If we've learned anything about Kansas State's dreadful start to the season so far, it's that talk is cheap.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rao, and thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen every single day. Welcome back to my everydayers. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. We're going to talk about Chris Klieman's presser that happened on Monday. There's a lot of news that has dropped. We're going to get to it. We might even have a bonus episode today because we might not be able to get to all of it. But there's an energy and identity crisis, obviously, through the off week. What kind of energy is that, right? And I think it's gut check time. Kansas State sits at 1-3, heading into a showdown against undefeated UCF. Who would have expected that to happen? Scott Frost has truly turned this team around very quickly. You can say what you want about the schedule, but 3-0 is still 3-0. Chris Klieman says this team has fixed its energy. Avery Johnson's at a crossroads, in my opinion, and the leaders are stepping up. But as I mentioned, talk is cheap. Can Kansas State finally deliver on the field? Let's break it down right now. I want to start with this energy and identity crisis that has been the new buzzwords for Kansas State since this 1-3 start. And I want to start with energy. Every single coach and players hammered it during the bye week so far this season, and practices are louder and more competitive and more physical. Guys are chirping at each other, celebrating plays, trying to reset the tone. Those are all the great things you want to hear. But how much of it is coach speak and how much of it actually is going to result on the field on Saturday against UCF? This is the real question. Is this an energy fix or just lip service? That's what I want to get to on today's episode, really asking you the question. That'll be my call to action, my comment in the leading comment in the YouTube description below. Is this an energy fix or is this lip service? Is just this coach speak? Let me know what you think in the comment description below, because we've seen this team talk tough before and we've seen them say the right things. But then Saturday rolls around, or Friday night, as it was against Arizona last week, and they look like they're stuck in the mud. Defensive lineman Travis Bates also talked to the media yesterday, and he flat out admitted it. He said, quote, "We've looked like 4 different teams in 4 weeks." Coach Klieman said that he wants this team to play with his hair on fire, and with the exception of only maybe a couple series or a quarter here and there, and he kind of really only alluded to the Iowa State game as majority of it, that's really all you're getting. You're not getting much. So this week against UCF is the perfect test. Are the Wildcats going to come out with their hair on fire and punch first? I mean, that's exactly what you need from this team. Whether you have the ball first and Avery Johnson goes down and scores right away on a big play, maybe a really amazing play to Jace Brown, def taxes, big play Jace. Can that happen on the first drive? Or can your defense show, when they're not going to be gassed because it'll be the first drive of the game, that they are this elite defense that we are hoping that Kansas State can have when there's no other excuses on board? UCF has done pretty well against their opponents. Last week, they beat the brakes off of North Carolina. Say what you will about Bill Belichick's team, but that's still a Bill Belichick coach team. You can talk about the strength of schedule. I've seen it in the comments where Kansas State's is in the 30th and UCF's is in the 200th. That doesn't change the fact that Kansas State is very close. I mean, 2 plays away, dare I say, to being 0-4. Doesn't matter if your strength of schedule is in the 30s, if you're 1-3 and almost losing to an FCS school. Scott Frost, in his first year, returning to UCF, returning to Orlando, has this team 3-0, a team that was 4-8 last season. So they're no team to push over. And as much as I want to say this is the path to get back on board, and I still think that's actually the case, because when you look at the rest of the schedule, there's no shortcomings. The Baylor game that's going to happen the following week, it's on ESPN Plus now instead. Then a primetime game, maybe that's another way you can find a win, but you have to build momentum in this one against UCF. That Baylor game, I thought, could have been potentially the Big 12 game of the year. And now we're getting it at 11 a.m. on Saturday on ESPN Plus. Crazy stuff. But I think this week against UCF is easily a perfect test. Call it a litmus test, if you will. I think it is for not only Avery Johnson, not only for this running back room, the entire team. Chris Klieman as well. I think Chris Klieman, all eyes are on what he does. And there was a couple of things he said in his press conference, a couple hidden words, maybe hidden agendas, talking about maybe the talent of the players and the coaching staff. He said words like, there's no free agency for the players in the field. And he said there's also no free agency for coaches. So it sounds like he still got it. It sounds like Chris Klieman is well aware of the situation of what everybody is alluding to. It's put up or shut up time for Kansas State. And here's the truth. If you can't show who they really are this weekend, if Kansas State can't show that, then maybe this team just isn't who they thought they were. Maybe that isn't. Maybe, we kind of already feel that way. But if they lose to UCF, this season's going down the drain. That'll add your second loss to the Big 12 standings, 2 for 2, being 0 for 2. And you need to be probably 7-2 to get to at least a potential tiebreaker to get to Arlington. That is your only goal moving forward. If you lose the UCF, then your goal becomes what? Make a bowl game? Is that a standard at Kansas State? That's the lowest of standards, I would feel, at least under Chris Klieman. It's a make or break moment, this UCF game, to reestablish the standard at Kansas State football. Crazy that we're talking about that. Weeks ago, we're talking about how this team is at worst a 9-3 football team. And now we're talking about, can the standard be brought back? That's how far we've fallen in the last month. So is it an energy fix or is it lip service? I guess we'll find out. This team's at a crossroads, and I think especially it's Avery Johnson. Avery Johnson, his entire season, his entire collegiate career as the starting quarterback of the Kansas State Wildcats is at a crossroads. I want to talk about that next right here on Locked On Kansas State. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on squares, like Varsity Donuts on Manhattan Avenue. There are certain businesses who truly make the neighborhood feel like home, whether it's your local sports bar packed with game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or that corner deli that serves your community for decades. There are places that bring people together. With neighborhood businesses that thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. And these local spots are what makes the neighborhood feel like home, and so many of them run on Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnCollege to learn more. But before you do, go to support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'd be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. This episode of Locked On Kansas State also brought to you by Game Time. College football is back, and hopefully Kansas State football is back with that identity we're talking about. Because if so, I'd be more excited than the moon. I'd be through the roof. But either way, heading to these football games are exciting. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it when being at a college football game, period. Let's be real. But actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's just the things you don't want to have to worry about when you're trying to enjoy your Saturday with these college football games. That's why I use Game Time. It's the app that I've been going to for years now, even before I was a host here at Locked On. The app that gives you the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up the Game Time app in just a couple taps. I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25 per ticket, and you get to see your view of your seat before you buy. It's the perfect risk to have a perfect time at the game. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe tap, ticket go. Download Game Time today. All right, next let's talk about Avery Johnson because he is at a crossroads. Chris Klieman, head coach of Kansas State, made it crystal clear, in my opinion. Avery Johnson needs to stop hesitating and just run the football. We heard from Matt Wells last week when he was filling in for the head coach and the Chris Klieman show. He wants to make him run the football more. I went through that entire quote of Matt Wells. There was no denying what he said. He wants Avery Johnson to make better decisions, and most of those decisions rely on him running the football more. He just wants him to run the football when plays break down. Too often he's staying in the pocket. He's trying to force throws or going through progressions too slowly. Sometimes the answer is simple. Just tuck it and go. And you saw this in the Arizona game. He wanted to be a little bit more of playing hero ball, and his completion percentage took a hit. Now, I am well aware that this is not just an Avery Johnson problem, and I discussed this on Monday in the crossover with Mike Gittens of Locked On UCF, because he was kind of throwing the shade at Avery Johnson, and I completely understand where he's getting at, because if you haven't watched every single play, or maybe you've just been in the highlights of watching Kansas State, and if you're a beat writer of another team, I don't expect you to watch every single play of Kansas State, especially when you're being dreadful 1-3 team on the season. I can't say I watch every 136 other schools or even other Big 12 schools play by play, but you have to know a little bit more of the deeper things. And that's why I pushed back with a little bit on Mike. And I said, yes, I'm with you on the completion percentage dropping very low. It's going down. It's one of the worst in the Big 12. And it's been a huge conversation point for Avery Johnson his entire collegiate career since taking over as the starter last season. But there's been so many wide receiver drops as well. Some of that just is not his fault. So that number is not the thing I look at. But however, after watching every single play of Kansas State this season and watching what Avery Johnson has done, it is easy to say that he is nowhere near the ceiling that he needs to be, nowhere near the expectation that Avery Johnson needs to be. It's not just Avery. The entire offense needs to take ownership as well. Drops from those receivers I mentioned, missed blocks up front by the offensive linemen. I mean, having these design runs for Avery Johnson haven't been working because the offensive linemen are turning around and yelling, "Look out" for Avery Johnson before he's tackled minus yards in the backfield. Running backs not hitting holes, not breaking tackles, all of it. It's part of the problem. But when you have offensive problems, and call it fair or not, the person you look for to make it change is the quarterback, the leader of the offense, and dare I say, the leader of the football team. It brings us to the trenches, though, and that's what I want to get to next. The offensive line has been too tentative. Klieman basically called them out. Stop guessing, stop waiting, start hitting people in the mouth. You got to win that battle on the attack, that first line of attack. This week is the worst possible time to still be soft because UCF's front seven under Alex Grinch is disruptive, fast, and physical. Those are the words that Chris Klieman said. Disruptive, fast, and physical. And I agree. UCF has shocked people. I know that people want to say, well, their schedule's not anything to worry about. Have you watched any of the games? You know, you can't really talk about the Jacksonville State game too much when you're looking at the offensive side of things, because they came in with a completely different game plan that they had to, and then the quarterback went injured. Kind of like how we try to push away the Iowa State narrative on the offensive side, because the entire play calls were designed for Dylan Edwards. And I'm trying to give one pass there to Matt Wells. You kind of have to do the same thing for Scott Frost and his offense. They just found out to get a win in that one. It was a close win against Jacksonville State, but nonetheless, they got a huge win. They blew out their FCS opponent. There was no question mark about a game-winning drive. They blew them out. And then last week against North Carolina, Bill Belichick's team, regardless of what the talent level you think of it, it's a Power 4 school, and there's a Hall of Fame NFL coach. Scott Frost outcoached him. The talent was there, the discipline, the execution, and they beat the brakes off the Tar Heels. So UCF is no joke. I didn't think there was going to be a single scenario where we were heading into this game and UCF was undefeated. I just didn't see that this offseason. So I'm eating my words for sure. They have to be disruptive. The offensive line, Avery Johnson, these running backs, you name it, have to be disruptive. And hopefully Dylan Edwards is back. Injury-wise, we had an update from Dylan Edwards. Hopefully he will be back to full speed this week. He said that on Monday, so hopefully he's practicing as we're talking right now or already practiced during today. and he's getting ready to go for game week. It's a full preparation for game week, had a full week off last week. His speed is crucial if Kansas State wants explosive plays. You can't rely on bringing Jace Brown into the backfield and having a predictable play now. If you see Jace Brown in the backfield, he's only done that once. They're going to expect those jet sweeps or things like that. You used it. Now, you might be able to sneak one by again, but you're going to have to find a way to maybe do it a couple times with decoys. Can you afford to do that when you're 1-3 right now? You can't, especially if Dylan Edwards isn't on the field. When Dylan Edwards was on the field against Arizona and those 4 carries we got, you could see the difference on the offense. You could clearly see it. There was a couple runs, nothing crazy, but you could see the train starting to move a little bit with Dylan in the backfield, making those plays, getting that speed off tackle. He was making the most and kind of takes away some of the errors of the offensive line because he's quickly getting the football and quickly getting to the other side of the line of scrimmage. We haven't got that so far with the rest of the running back room so far, although I think they are improving. They're just nowhere close to where Dylan Edwards is. So having him back, and again, at full speed and full health, not with the fact of maybe potentially being on a snap count like the talks were in Arizona, will be absolutely huge and crucial moving forward. One more injury update just to let you know. George Fitzpatrick was asked about in the press conference from Chris Klieman, and he said he's still limited. He's doing some drills, just not cleared for practice. That's about all we got. It's a big blow still. We're still waiting on what we're going to hear from him. We've heard that that's moved to the middle of October to late October. It comes to a point in time that if this team continues to struggle, do they just decide to redshirt him and move on? And even if they do a redshirt, if it's medical redshirt, maybe he doesn't play at all. Maybe he only plays towards the end of the season, gets just his 3-4 games in and decides to redshirt. Either way, this is a really rough blow from this offensive line. Something that has been discussed all offseason long and during media days about this offensive lineman being the best on the team. I mean, built himself up to being on the starting left tackle on the depth chart. And when you look at who the left tackle is now in John Pastore, he's the best offensive lineman. So having those 2 offensive tackles sounds like that's going to help a lot of things moving forward. But so far, we haven't had that yet. So here's the real test. Can Avery Johnson trust his legs? Because there's been moments where you would think that he could run for first downs, run for scrambles, see what we saw last year against, or multiple years ago against Texas Tech, those 5 rushing touchdowns, his freshman year packages, or last year just from his running game alone. It seems like it's a decline from what we're getting from Avery Johnson as what we've hoped to think he was as a dual threat quarterback. It's hard to continue to make that argument when he's not trusting his legs or the play calling isn't in that direction. Can the receiver stop dropping easy stuff? I mean, that's insane alone. 10 drops PFF has given Kansas State receivers so far this season. I believe there was even more this past weekend as well. Absolutely insane. And can this offensive line finally deliver the physicality to keep talking about this team as the Kansas State standard? Because if not, UCF's defense, they're going to feast. Scott Frost is going to move the 4-0 in his return to Orlando. And Chris Klieman and his coaching staff are going to remain twiddling their thumbs at 1-4 and wondering how they can get back and salvage this season after losing to Arizona, Army, and UCF in back-to-back-to-back games. Can't happen. This is a must-win for Kansas State. I can't say that any more than enough. They need to have a perfect game. They need to have a statement game, and that statement game means winning by 1. Because right now you don't have to win by a lot. You just got to win the football game. And you got to rely on your veteran players. You got to rely on your star players. And you got to hope that leadership steps up and steps forward. And that's where I want to go to next. I want to talk about leadership and resilience. What does that mean moving forward? Some more buzzwords to talk about. We'll finish up the show right here on Locked On Kansas State. But first, this episode of Locked On Kansas State is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. With an all-wheel drive standard and every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Welcome back to Locked On Kansas State. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We are continuing to grow every single day, bringing you Wildcats coverage like no one else. We're talking football today, but there's going to be some more basketball talk to talk in the future. Jerome Tang had a conversation with the media for the first time on Monday. We'll get to that because I have a lot of thoughts, a lot of positive thoughts to bring it in. Maybe it's because it's just the start of basketball season and we need some happy thoughts for Kansas State fans. But we'll have that on the channel later on, either today or in the morning. But regardless, stick around, hit that bell if you're on the YouTube so you can get that notifications on when extra episodes drop. Let's talk about leadership, because this is where the locker room is trying to take ownership. And I absolutely applaud it. But again, going back to my original thought here, talk is cheap. When you're 1-3, talk is absolutely cheap. Defensive back Wesley Fair talked to the teammates or talked to the media on Monday and said, about celebrating your teammates, picking guys up and focusing on the team instead of yourself is huge. Austin Romaine, who hasn't had the best season so far, at least not to those All-American or all Big 12 standards that we thought so far this season, said the bye week gave them a chance to reset and simplify the defense and play faster. I think simplifying the defense sounds fun. What does that mean? Does that mean for coverage? Does that mean for the linebacking crew? And play faster, does that involve when you're on the field for 15, 16 play drives? Those might be in the past, but the last couple weeks, the time of possession has not been in favor of Kansas State, and this defense continues to get gassed and beat up towards the end of games. Playing faster, does that mean that you're able to stick around in the third and fourth quarter if you're being faster and using more energy early on? Is that a good thing? We'll see. I hope so. And of course, tight end Will Swanson said it's on the veterans to be vocal, set tones, and fight the rest of the year. Show fight the rest of the year. Again, that sounds all great. And is it good energy or is it lip service? You want to be able to trust these guys because they keep using this word resilience. But the bottom line here, leadership, resilience, and the leadership only matter if that leads to wins. Kansas State isn't used to being 1-3. Chris Klieman, went straight up and said it sucks. It absolutely sucks. He's not used to being in that position while being at Kansas State. Take away the COVID year, right? No one pays attention to that unless you're just looking at his box scores and coaching records on Wikipedia. But really, it doesn't matter. He's not used to being in this situation. The veterans can talk about fighting, about energy, about resiliency, but at the end of the day, the team has to prove it on the field. And at 1-3 and potentially very close to being 0-4, you haven't. You haven't yet. This UCF matchup is a gut check. It is a litmus test, 100%. If the Cats come out flat again, that's not resilience. That's a broken football team. But if the leadership is real, if it really is real, if the veterans are raising the bar and they had an entire off week to do so, then we should see a completely different Kansas State football team on Saturday. We should see that fiery, hair on fire team that we expected to see all season long on Saturday from the jump against the Knights. Maybe this is the week Kansas State turns it around. So we'll see if that's the case moving forward. Again, this game is going to be 11 o'clock Central. It's on FS1. A lot of stuff to check out, of course, in Manhattan as well. So here's where I'll leave it, Cats fans. Is the energy real? Is it just lip service? Is it just coach speak? Or is the energy real? Let me know in the comment description below. Also, can Avery Johnson, can he step up and use his legs? Do you have faith in Avery Johnson to get it done? Because we're at that moment in time where we're now asking the question, can the quarterback, the golden child, Avery Johnson, get it done? And is this leadership core, these veteran players that we continue to talk about and hear about, enough to keep this season alive? This season alive is not with a loss against UCF, not with the way the rest of the schedule looked. Have you seen Texas Tech? Have you seen Utah? There's a lot of players, a lot of teams that should be a lot better than UCF. Even though UCF is undefeated, they can't afford to lose this one. They have to hand the Knights their first loss of the season. Let me know what you think. Drop your comments, hit subscribe while you're there. And if you're rolling with the Cats to upset UCF, because that's where we're at now, it's an upset. Although FanDuel has the Cats favored, I'm not in that boat right now. It's an upset if you 1-3 team beats a 3-0 team. That's just how it goes. But let me know, because this game might just decide if Kansas State's season is alive or already dead. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you back here next time, right here on Locked On Kansas State.